Hello Acolytes, welcome back to After Plague and my June reading wrap up. I'm so excited to tell you about the books I read this month because I got approved to get ARCs from NetGalley, yay! So I have some opinions on some advanced reader copies that are going to be coming out in the future. So if you want to hear those, definitely stick around. I'm going to start as usual with my tracker and my book clubs page. And then I'm going to go into voiceover for the rest of my reviews. So if you want to skip to the reviews, you can go to this time signature on the screen right here, or maybe it's there, or maybe it's down here, or maybe it's in this corner. Maybe it's all the way down here and it's this big and it's so tiny and you can't even see it. Maybe it's that. Anyway, we are going to go into June. Now, for those of you who watch my May reading wrap up, you know that I absolutely made a huge mistake with my May calendar and I had to do all of this fixing because I accidentally did the June calendar. So I made sure to double check that this was the June calendar. You'll also notice that I completely got the book club book wrong for last month. So it is already glued in here so that I would not forget. Let's get started. So I'm just gonna do the lines here, write our book club thing. I'm gonna put my TBR down here, and then we'll move on to the reviews. I read a decent amount this month. I read 8 books, which is odd for me because I always try to read an odd number of books, and I do that specifically for my reading journal. Because if I do an even number of pages, then my collage page for the next month is going to be on the wrong page. This month, there's going to be a gap for my mid-year reading wrap-up, which is gonna come out soon. It's gonna come out a little bit late, just because I am late doing everything, but that's okay. I think this is the right calendar. I think it is. I think I did it. I think it's the right calendar. It's the right calendar, right? Makes me so nervous. I can't believe I messed it up so bad last month. I didn't even think about it. Now, because this is kind of weirdly shaped, I have to tuck the key in right here, but I don't think I mind. I read a lot of books with freaking long titles, man. I put it in the wrong order, but that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And we're actually gonna fill it in this time. We're not gonna forget like we did last time. I don't typically read like this. This is a really weird reading layout for me. I typically start a book and then finish it before starting another one, but it looks like this month, almost every book I was reading concurrently with something else. The only ones I wasn't were number 5 and number 8. Everything else is overlapping. And then I also need to do my stamps. That's a lot darker than I usually do it, because I try not to get these borders, but I actually kind of like it. So I got peach themed desserts. I like all these peach pies and stuff. See, I always get kind of nervous using my supplies before I do the collage, but I have plenty of supplies. I got it locked in. So we're gonna add some of this nice text stuff for the corners. Also, I'm definitely gonna run out of glue. I'm just hoping that it is after I finish what I have to do. I'm gonna have to go shopping tonight, aren't I? Maybe these guys? Ooh, yeah, that's nice. That's bloody lovely, that is. I don't know why the peach stickers came with hydrangea stickers and not peach blossoms, but I'm not gonna question it too much. I'm just not. I could, but I'm not. And I know you want me to, but I'm not. Absolutely. Ah, it crinkled. Oh, there we go. I was gonna say absolutely perfect, and then I completely jinxed it, didn't I? Guys, is that too cute there? Is it too cute? Is it just too cute? Is it too cute? I feel like it's slightly too big. But is it too cute though? Oh, adorable. You couldn't even see. You're asking when will I get better at framing things on camera? You're asking after doing this 6 times, how are you still not good at framing things on camera? It's a really rude question to ask, don't you think? It's kind of a harsh thing to say. Jeez. I know I'm not great at it, but you don't have to be so mean about it. Guys, you don't even kind of want to know how thick this book is getting. You don't want to know. It's so thick. I'm sure that it's pulling away from the binding right now, and I'm going to have to like hot glue my book back together because of the sheer amount of stuff that I'm trying to glue into this book. It's incredible. It's, I know hubristic isn't a word, but it should be, meaning of hubris, having much hubris. And the answer is no. I have been such a freaking scroob about going to my book clubs. I am truly ashamed. I am truly dishonored. See, I kind of like, I make a TBR and then I don't read it because I'm a mood reader. Let's see, what was on my TBR this month? Last month, I spooze. The thing is I'm stupid and I already updated it. I already deleted my list. I was like, oh, I'll make a list so that I remember what was on the list so I don't have to guess what was on my TBR because it's on the list. And then I deleted the list without even thinking about it because I'm stupid. And I feel like maybe we should put some of the flowers on here. Like these guys, maybe? Uh-oh, my thing is gonna die. If it dies, I'll finish decorating without you. I'll show you at the end, I love you. I love you. I really thought the camera was gonna die faster. I wouldn't have been so dramatic about it if I knew you were gonna, you know, hang around this long. I thought you were passing away, so I was maybe a little more dramatic than I needed to be. I apologize sincerely for that. Now we're hopping into voiceover to do the reviews. Just a quick note, there will be some sections here where I go into a little bit more spoilery territory. Right before I do that, you will see this icon on screen and hear this noise. Once the icon and the noise play a second time, I will be out of spoiler territory. So that's how you'll know to skip ahead if you don't want some spoilers. The Golden Couple. This is a story about Marissa and Matthew Bishop, a couple that seem to have it all. Great jobs, a loving relationship, a cute son, a perfect house, but Marissa is unfaithful to Matthew. She wants to repair things for the sake of their 8-year-old son, and also because she still loves her husband, which is where Avery Chambers enters our story. Avery is a therapist who lost her professional license due to some extremely unorthodox methods. However, she does seem to be incredibly effective. Marissa will do just about anything to save her marriage, including Avery's incredibly invasive techniques, though there might be more danger here than what meets the eye. In my opinion, The Golden Couple is a fine thriller, but what's stopping me from rating it higher is its predictability.
I knew from the very beginning of the story who the villain was, so the author's attempts to throw me off the trail fell a little flat. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the book, because I did. I think it slumped a lot pacing-wise at the 60 to 70% mark. It just, my eyes sort of glazed over. But overall, there was enough tension to keep my attention. The characters were pretty decent. I liked Avery, the therapist, a lot, and I think that she's a relatively unique female character. She's pretty cold and detached, but she never really came across as the stereotype of like the frigid, career-focused woman. Her narrative of grief throughout the story is interesting, though I don't think it was explored enough for me to fully feel her catharsis at the end. It was fine. Her side story adds to the tension as well, but I don't think it was necessary. The twist that they pulled in the end in relation to who was behind her sort of like stalking was not great. It didn't give me a shock or a thrill, just a shrug. The golden couple themselves are not that interesting. Matthew, of the two of them, has more to his character. There's some stuff about his mother and his relationship with his father. He seems like he could be a really interesting character, but the narrative focuses more on Marissa, because we get chapters from her point of view. Unfortunately, Marissa is kind of shallow. She didn't like cheat on her husband for any deeper reason or anything. She just did it for the reason that most cheaters do it, you know? It's hard to feel sympathetic towards her because she is the one in the wrong when they go to counseling. Unfortunately, I think Matt goes through a bit of a character assassination through the story. Even though he was nothing but loving to his wife and child at the beginning, I guess it's believable, but it made me roll my eyes. There's nothing really to note about the writing or the atmosphere. They both kind of faded into the background a little bit. Again, this book was kind of mid, but it filled an afternoon for me, and it jump-started me out of a little bit of a reading slump. Oh, also, there is a dog. He doesn't die. That's always good to hear, right? His name is Romeo, and he's an adorable pit bull mix, a total cutie. He does not die. The dog does not die. Yay. If you've got some time to burn, I would recommend it. I listened to the audiobook, and it was well done, so maybe give that a go. I gave The Golden Couple a completely mid 3 stars. I have some extremely exciting news. This month, I got my very first ARCs, standing for Advanced Reader Copies, from NetGalley. For those who don't know, NetGalley is essentially where like publishers and authors go to put out initial copies of their books so that when their books come out, they don't have like 0 reviews. It's to build hype, it's to get a little bit of feedback. Sometimes they can edit books from in between when they post them on NetGalley and when they actually are published, so often the ARC is a little bit different from the final copy. But I finally got some, and I'm so excited. I read 3 ARCs this month, and I'm very excited to share them with you. The first of which is They Thought They Buried Us. So this is a story about Yuiza. She's a horror fan and an aspiring horror film director, and the story begins when she gets a scholarship to a really prestigious girls' boarding school called Our Lady of Perpetual Mercy. This is typically a scholarship for students of color, so Yuiza immediately feels a bit out of place with the majority white student body. In addition, all of the scholarship students are signed up for a work-study program, and their schedule makes it impossible to keep up with classes. Every expense from textbooks to the laundry also puts Yuiza in debt, and some of the students and faculty behave in a bit of a strange way towards her and the other scholarship students. In addition, there's also a supernatural element where Yuiza starts having strange, disturbing dreams about the school's past as like a nunnery or a convent, an orphanage, that kind of thing. Yuiza is deep in it, and she has to use all of her knowledge of horror movies to escape from the school's grasp. Also, I'm not going to go into a spoiler section out of respect for authors, editors, publishers trying to get their book out and build hype. I don't want to spoil everything for you. This book is very young adult, and if I had known that, I probably wouldn't have read it. I don't enjoy young adult reading. I often find it quite juvenile. I will say that even within the realm of young adult books that I have read, this writing style was noticeably younger and, dare I say, annoying. I'm really sorry, it just is. Yuiza is our main character, and there are some things I really like about her. First of all, they use both she and they pronouns, so if I am sounding confused, it's not because I'm confused, it's because they use both. So they're a really strong-willed character, and they're really sure of who they are, and I think that their strength and connection with their heritage is extremely interesting. I also find it fascinating that there is this immediate conflict off the bat that she is really uninterested in going to this boarding school that's an all-girls boarding school because they automatically feel like it conflicts with their identity. The representation in this story is very unsubtle, which in some ways I think is a good thing. I believe that it ties in really well with the theme of the normalization of white supremacy at the school. It's extremely normal for the students of color to have different gender presentation, but we don't see any of this variety in the white students, which is definitely more in line with how a lot of indigenous cultures and non-white cultures view gender in relation to the way that a lot of white cultures do. I think it's really good and it's really interesting. It's a great conversation starter. Unfortunately, I again really dislike Yuisa's inner voice, which is our narration through the story. I also didn't enjoy the movie script gimmick. Like, at times dialogue will be written out like it's a script in a movie. Whenever she's having these dream sequences, they're often written out as a script in a movie, so it'll be like scene, interior, orphanage, daytime. You know, it's just like, I could take it or leave it. I really don't like it. I like that Yuisa has an interest in horror movies, and she does commentate on how her life is becoming like a horror movie. There's like one section where it's actually relevant to the plot, but I just don't think that the rest of the plot, I don't think it's integrated enough to justify the gimmick, and it always took me right out of the narrative. The other characters are not necessarily as fleshed out as they could be. The side character with the most depth is Glorymar, who is Yuisa's roommate, and I really liked her and her story and her personality. I think that Glorymar represents something really strong within the theme. I think that she's a good addition. There's also Allende, and they were a character that had a lot more potential for depth than they actually achieved. And I think that Feyre, this sort of like connection to the white students at the school, is in the same boat. I think that she could have created more of a connection, more tension, more of this feeling that even sometimes the white people in your life as a person of color don't necessarily have this level of knowledge of what you're going through, or even level of caring if it's something difficult. I think that she could have been more well utilized, and she's not. We never truly find out anything deeper about some of these characters, so I don't feel for them as deeply as I would like to. The world building of the school is really fascinating, and the escalating tension once she arrives at the campus is really well done. Every time Yuisa had to buy something or slipped a little behind in classes, I cringed for them. It's the section of the book that I enjoyed the most, and I think it's also the section that highlights the themes the most strongly. The book is about how we don't all have to work the same to achieve the same opportunities, and that BIPOC are systemically disadvantaged, and I completely agree with this. I also like that the theme, again, is not subtle. It is as in your face as it gets. And I think that that's kind of good for the younger audience that it's trying to cultivate. However, I also do think that at times there were some very, very violent parts of the book. I'm specifically thinking about like animal death and a little bit too much graphic description of that for a younger audience, so I think it's a little confused there. Just as the novel is building to the climax, several things in a row really made me dislike it. Firstly, the villains give a monologue about their evil schemes, and it includes things that were never even slightly hinted towards in the novel, nor explained further. Like, I was like, did I miss that? But no, I didn't. It just came out of nowhere. The magical realism also starts to get much more magical than I was anticipating, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, I think it should have leaned a little bit more into the magic or a little bit more into the realism, because right now it toes that line and it doesn't balance it well. It feels like they're flailing their arms around trying to keep that balance, and it's like, just step to one side or the other. And to top the whole thing off, the ending is extremely ambiguous. I cannot stress enough that if you don't like ambiguous endings, you are not going to like this ending. I promise you. I am not a huge fan of ambiguous endings, but I have liked them in the past. I think this one was done extremely poorly. It was very bold, but it felt more like the author just didn't know how to end the book rather than a well thought out intentional culmination of the themes. I wish I liked They Thought They Buried Us more. I think it's an important story that needs to be told, but I think there were too many plot points that were dropped and lost, and too many oddities that I had to let go of. I gave They Thought They Buried Us 1.5 stars. The Paris apartment. Jess is our main character, and she needs a fresh start. She is leaving her job after not great circumstances. She's totally broke, has nowhere to stay, but she does have a lifeline in her half-brother Ben, who lives in Paris. He's not, like, super thrilled when she asks if she can stay, but he says yes. But when she shows up at the apartment, he is not there. He doesn't answer the door, she has to sneak her way in, and in his apartment, he is not there. The longer that Ben stays missing, the more that Jess starts to dig into what her brother was working on. As an investigative journalist, he's not exactly out of danger. Ben's neighbors in the apartment building are also really strange and oddly unfriendly. Everyone is a suspect, everyone knows something that they're not telling, and Jessica is going to find it out. This one hurt my feelings. I'm sorry. I had really high hopes for the Paris apartment. I've previously read 2 of Lucy Foley's other books, and I enjoyed them a lot. That would be The Guest List and The Hunting Party. I gave them both 4 stars, so when I heard this book was getting a lot of praise, I couldn't wait to pick it up. Unfortunately, I was so disappointed. The primary issue is the pacing. In my opinion, nothing really meaningful or even intriguing happens until the 60% mark of this book. That's a lot of pages where I'm sitting around and waiting for something to happen. It's probably the nature of who her protagonist is compared to how she frames her other books. Jess is not affiliated with the people in the apartment building at all, when a lot of Foley's other novels revolve around a more close-knit group of friends with a lot of history. There is history between those in the apartments, as they've been neighbors for a while, but they're all hiding something. The reader doesn't really get to understand their relationships to each other until, again, around the 60% mark. It just leaves the first half of the novel floundering a bit and made it really, really boring. It took me like a full week to get through the first half of this book. Jess is in Paris after an altercation forced her to leave London in a hurry, but when she arrives at her brother Ben's apartment, he is not there. There's also no trace of a body. That is a pretty interesting setup. I enjoy not having concrete evidence of exactly what happened, but it does mean that it's a little more of an interview-based investigation, which typically don't hit as hard for me as an evidentiary one, because often evidentiary ones feel a little bit more active. You know, like they found this, they found that, they looked for this, they looked for that. Whereas more often than not, interview-based mysteries are just the characters talking to each other, and so there's not a lot of momentum keeping the story going. The characters are pretty interesting. Once we get the halfway reveal, we get to know a lot more about them. It makes it like they're intentionally obscuring themselves from the reader for the first half of the book. It's weird. I don't know, but as soon as we reach that point, they all start displaying motive as to why they could be the killer. They each have distinct personalities, and each of the perspectives were valuable within the context of the story. I also think Jess as a protagonist was fine. I liked the skills that she displayed, like picking locks and knowing when she's being followed, and her ability to read people was really useful for this kind of mystery. The atmosphere was good as well. The apartment building feels very gothic. It's like a grand old thing that used to be beautiful, and I like that a lot. The setting also made Jess feel more trapped in her predicament and more isolated in who she could go to for help, because she's in Paris and she doesn't speak French. I do think that she would probably run into more Parisians that spoke English, but I can't make a full judgment call on that. I was really impressed by the twist that all of those in separate apartments were actually part of the same family. Sophie and Jacques in the penthouse were the parents. Mimi, Antoine, and Nick are their adult children. That twist actually got me really good, though the twist in Nick's story did not get me at all. I knew exactly what was happening from the moment that he started hinting at it. Sorry. Antoine's twist got me, and some of Mimi's did as well. I think that was pretty good. Unfortunately, the twist of who the killer was did not get me. At about the 25% mark, I made the prediction that there was no one killer. I turned to my boyfriend and I said, they all did it. Murder on the Orient Express style. And I was mostly correct. The surprising twist of who the victim was turned out to be pretty unexpected, though. The plot also takes a strange turn from being about this one murder to being about a hidden brothel that traps women into working for them by taking their passports. Honestly, it's a good plot point and a very good reason that the family would want to shut Ben up as a journalist. It just felt a little bit out of place as a last act reveal because it's such a big secret. There's police corruption involved and politicians and secret family reveals, and it just starts to become a bit of a tangled up knot that wasn't really fun to untangle. There's also a lot of mentions of protests and riots going on, but I don't believe they were ever important to the story. They really didn't have anything to do with the mystery, and they didn't impede the investigation at all. It's not like the police were trying to look into it and the riots stopped it. Nothing like that. It was just kind of pointless filler. Overall, I think that the book was a little boring and a bit too convoluted at the end. It's not going to stop me from reading Foley's work in the future, but this one was a big miss for me. I would recommend it if you're a patient reader who enjoys the build-up to a reveal. That is not me, though. I gave The Paris Apartment 2.5 stars. Though honestly, it's probably a 2-star. I just felt bad rating it a 2-star because I rated A House of Night book a 2-star, and it's definitely better than A House of Night book. Maybe. At least The House of Night book was interesting. Anyway, it's not important. The Second Life of Mirielle West. So this is based on a semi-true story. I guess I would say it's based on a true location. In Louisiana, in the 1920s, there was a ex-military base, I believe, known as Carville, which was a leper colony. So essentially, people who had leprosy, because it was incurable at that point, people who had leprosy had to stay at Carville until they were, I guess, not cured from leprosy, but until they weren't contagious anymore. So they're forcibly quarantined at Carville, which I had never heard of before. So anyway, the story follows Mirielle West, who is a socialite married to a film star, who goes to a doctor for like a slight burn on her finger, and he notices a leper spot, and he sends her away to this camp. Obviously, as this rich girl, it does not go well for her. She does not enjoy it at all. At first, she sort of hopes that she'll be in and out really quick, that it's just a mistake, but it looks less and less likely that she's going to be out anytime soon. She is asked by the general at Carville to help in their quest to cure leprosy, and she becomes a nurse to help care for those who have leprosy. Amanda Skeetendor wastes exactly 0 time in hopping into her plots, which I like a lot. It definitely speeds up the pacing of the books, and The Second Life of Mirielle West is obviously no different. I had almost no concept of leprosy. I didn't know how it presents, or how contagious it is, or even what the treatment is, and I think the author did an excellent job of providing the answers to all of those questions, along with a pretty emotional story. Something I wasn't expecting from this novel, and it's my fault because I didn't read the whole blurb, is that it turns into a nursing story. I read The Nurse's Secret by Skeetendor in January, and I think that it was much more justified in its turn to nursing than this book. Mirielle goes into working as a nurse to help find a cure for leprosy, but I truly do not understand her logic. It's lampshaded by other characters in universe, but Mirielle has no applicable skills. She's literally an upper-class rich woman with 0 life skills outside of event planning. What did she think she was going to be able to contribute to finding a cure? She's like delusional. I don't know. I know that that's partially the point of her character. She's like extremely self-centered and arrogant, and nursing and serving others humbles her and allows her character to grow. I like the development she went through. I haven't read many books recently that are unafraid to have a genuinely unlikable protagonist that goes through a solid character arc and becomes better. It's actually kind of interesting because I saw a lot of people complaining about the fact that she's like so annoying and like unlikable, and it's like, yeah, that's sometimes what characters are like at the beginning of the story. It's called a character arc. Look it up, honey. The colony itself is a really fascinating setting, and the author clearly did her research and fleshed it out well. All of the daily routines, the medical routines, and even the event planning felt rooted in the time and place. The secondary characters are a great addition. There's Frank, who is like one of the primary catalysts for Mirielle's change, and he's actually genuinely a good guy. I liked Frank a lot. Charlie is her husband back home, and he's a very neutral character that's only appearing in letters. I don't like the way that he tells the audience that Mirielle is detached and selfish. We can see that by reading the story, and we don't really need to be handheld. That was kind of irritating. Jean is a child with leprosy in the colony, and Mirielle basically uses her as a surrogate daughter while away from her own children. All of these characters were fine, serviceable, not really anything too interesting. I really did not enjoy the section at the end where Jean runs away and Mirielle has to escape the colony to find her. I get that there needed to be a climax, but I really didn't care for Jean that much. She was kind of annoying, I'm sorry. I understand she's a child, but come on, girl. And it started to get convoluted. Jean is missing, and the police are looking for Mirielle because she's escaped the leper colony, and then there's a hurricane incoming, and they have to evacuate everybody onto a barge, and it's gonna flood, and blah blah blah. It's just, there's so much going on. There's also a lot in the book about Mirielle's child who passed away via drowning. I don't think it ultimately adds much to her character or to her development. It led to her being a bit of a selfish alcoholic, but I don't think we actually needed a reason for that. She could just be like that because she's a socialite party girl. I suppose that you could say that Mirielle saving Jean was a parallel for not being able to save her son, and therefore she found peace in the end, and blah 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 blah. I just don't think it was necessary. I get why it's there, I just didn't enjoy it. I learned a lot about leprosy, and I enjoyed watching Mirielle grow. It's also a pretty interesting subversion on the rags to riches trope, instead going from riches to rags. It's interesting, and I liked it. The ending was a bit bittersweet, but I'm glad we received the epilogue that we did. I would recommend if you want to learn a bit more about little-known history, and if you enjoy watching characters eat humble pie. I gave The Second Life of Mirielle West 3 stars. The Arsenic Eater's Wife. Next up, we have another arc. Yay, I love arcs. So this story takes place in 1989 in England, and we follow another rich character, 26-year-old Constance Sullivan. She is married to a much older man. She is currently, at the start of the story, on trial for poisoning and murdering her husband. But there seems to be a few hiccups in the trial that might go to show that Constance is way more innocent than she appears. There seem to be people around her that are conspiring against her, and maybe William himself is not quite so innocent either. So The Arsenic Eater's Wife is marketed as a mystery thriller, like historical mystery thriller. It's way more of a period drama than a true thriller or murder mystery. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I imagine this kind of story is really difficult to categorize. I'm simply pointing out that for readers who might be expecting a more traditional mystery or thriller structure, this is not that. The mystery really only accounts for quite a small portion of the story. Mostly it's a story about Constance, a woman whose husband dies under mysterious circumstances. They had some serious issues within their marriage, so everyone around her kind of believes that she's guilty. Connie is not a very interesting protagonist. She is determined and very loyal to her children. They are her primary motivator throughout the story, but we never really see her interact or play with her children in a way that would deepen that bond. She seems to just have that general unending love for her children that mothers in media have. The children are mostly taken care of by the serving staff, and they play a really minor role in the story, so it makes Connie's motivations and her love and undying devotion to her children a little shaky. There's also a truly unbearable amount of repetition throughout the story. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I truly believe that almost 2 hours could be cut. We see an event from Connie's perspective, then hear the lawyers talk about it in their opening statements in court, then hear the witnesses being questioned about the events, then see the lawyers talking about it in their closing statements, then hear the judge talk about it, and then. Connie is also constantly talking about how her house is evil and haunted, but there is no basis for that belief. We see none of that. It's truly confusing. I kept expecting a little spooky supernatural moment, but that did not happen. She's just like, this house is evil, and that's it. Connie and William, her husband and the victim, have a very contentious relationship. He's portrayed in a very negative light. He's verbally, financially, physically abusive towards her, amongst other things. And yet, the book tries to convince us that he was a good man for Connie and a good father. I can't understand how she doesn't feel free after William's death. She's instantly regretful over how she treated him. Why? It was I know it was a different time, but we saw zero redeeming qualities from that man for the entirety of the novel. And then they try to pull out this tender confession scene. No. I liked the actions that Connie took to get back at her husband, and I think that the story might have worked better if we thought there was a chance that she was the killer. She had plenty of motive, but the entire time we know she's innocent, so that's kinda eh. Near the end, there's also a really large time skip, after which Connie questions all the suspects. I'm not usually someone who's a fan of time skips, but I think this one was done okay. Generally, I find that time skips reset the characters and we have to learn who they are all over again, but everyone remained pretty consistent with this one. The thing I disliked was that everyone just sort of spilled all their secrets to Connie with the slightest bit of questioning and prodding, as though they hadn't been keeping these secrets tightly for years. Instead of seeing exciting reveals play out, we have people just telling us the plot twists years after they're relevant. It's it was disappointing. I sound like a massive hater, but I really did enjoy parts of the book. The main mystery is pretty interesting, and I think that Tanya Mitchell did an excellent job of setting up several characters as suspects. I feel like I knew who had done it at about the 40% mark, but the red herrings were good enough to actually keep me interested. The final plot twist was pretty good as well. I found the ending relatively satisfying. I also really liked the reveal about William's cause of death. The writing was excellent, and the atmosphere was pretty good as well. It seemed like the author really did her research into the era. I have no way of knowing if all of the information was factually correct, but it was well explained down to the function of arsenic in the body. The courtroom was an interesting setting, and the back and forth structure of the novel kept it from being too dry. It's just that everything was repeated and scenes started to drag. I should also mention, trigger warning, big trigger warning, there is a lot of self-harm in this novel and a suicide attempt. So if that's triggering for you, I would not recommend. I don't have any experience with that, so I can't say if it was handled well or not. In my personal opinion, I found it a bit unnecessary, and I don't really like the way that whole plot point was resolved. I don't know. Just be cautious. I feel like I have a lot of complaints about the Arsenic Eater's Wife, but the base plot and the immense amount of character drama were really gripping. I was telling my boyfriend the plot of this novel afterwards, leaving out everything I found unnecessary, and he was enthralled. He actually really liked it. So I would say it's in need of a harsh edit and a slightly reworked denouement. I would recommend the Arsenic Eater's Wife if you enjoy a messy, dramatic, historical novel and have some time to kill. I gave it 3 stars. Belle has always been a woman really obsessed with beauty and skincare. When her mother, Noelle, mysteriously dies, Belle finds herself back in California dealing with her mom's debts and grappling with lingering questions about the death. A strange woman in red appears at the funeral, offering a tantalizing clue about her mother's demise, followed by a cryptic video about a transformative spa experience. Belle is lured into the embrace of La Maison des Méduses, or Rouge. There, Belle discovers frightening secrets about what had been happening to her mother in the months leading up to her death. This book is so high concept, I genuinely cannot explain it to you. I'm doing my best. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. This book is probably a 3.75, but I'm gonna round it up to 4 for this video because I don't do 0.75s. I only do half stars. So I read Bunny near the end of last year, and I have similar feelings about it as I do about Rouge. When I finished the book, I was left with a profound sense of confusion, but like a deeper gut feeling that I had liked what I read. I wanted to talk about it and get others' opinions on the themes and what they thought was actually happening. I actually made my boyfriend read Bunny so that we could talk about it together. Over time, my feelings towards Bunny grew more fond, and now I think of it as like a really, really good book. I wanted to read more of Awad's writing, and I put a couple of her books on hold at the library. I kind of wonder if time will sweeten my feelings towards Rouge as well. This novel has an interesting relationship with fairy tales. It's stated on the blurb that it's supposed to feel a little bit like a modern Snow White. And I think the structure follows that of a traditional fairy tale really well. The character has 3 treatments at Rouge, just like the 3 times Cinderella attends the ball, or the 3 instances where the evil queen tries to kill Snow White. There's a magical quality to the events in the story, and of course, the magic mirror on the wall. There's a strong theme of envy, specifically the envy of beauty coursing through the veins of Rouge. I think it's really interesting the timeliness of Mirabelle's specific form of beauty obsession. She's addicted to skincare. She wants nothing more than pale, perfect, blemish and wrinkle-free skin. There's something to be said for the idealization of whiteness as a beauty norm as well, especially within the context of Belle being half Egyptian, which I believe that Mona Awad also is. But the emphasis on skincare is prevalent in our current beauty culture. Just a few months ago, there was quite a large blow-up on the internet of the 10-year-olds in Sephora buying skincare that would ruin their natural skin barrier. There's a prevailing fear of aging and wrinkling that's only gotten stronger, and Mona Awad tapped into that with very impressive skill. But the author also embodies the counter-argument to that fear of aging, the memories you made. A scar on your forehead might be a memory of an intense softball game, or the freckles on your cheeks might remind you of the beautiful summer days you spent out in the ocean. Our skin tells the story of our lives, and the desire to wipe yourself clean leaves you empty, which is the theme of the book, and I really liked it. I thought it was really clever. Another aspect that I really enjoyed was the subtle, drag of tension pulling Belle towards her doom. She has this, compulsive desire to walk in her mother's shoes, and she seems to be literally unable to not be guided by them, which reminds me again of another fairy tale of it's like the girl with the red shoes or something that dance her half to death. It's crazy. It draws on a lot of really interesting fairy tales, and I'm fascinated by it. So there's the compulsive walking of her mother's shoes. Her reflection isn't quite attached to her body. And then she does this thing that a lot of characters that go to the Rouge Spa do, where they slip. They have little word slips after treatments, and it creates this underlying sense of dread when she was away from Rouge. So even in the parts of the story that were more mundane and less magical, you still felt this pull towards the spa, which I think was fascinating. I also think the ending was fantastic. The culmination of all of the themes of beauty and identity and the love between a mother and daughter were all really memorable. There were some truly visceral moments and a really heartfelt ending. I have a lot of positive things to say, obviously, but I have complaints too. With how much I'm praising the book, you would think I should rate it 5 stars, but there was just one really big issue. Seth. So Seth is essentially a being that appears to Belle when she's younger, and he's not a figment of her imagination, or maybe he is, because she sees him at Rouge later, and he's real, and he says he marked her when she was a child, and blah 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 blah. In some ways I enjoyed Seth. He is the magic mirror on the wall. And he's the reason that Noelle, Belle's mom, and Belle's involvement in everything that happens in California. He is the start point of it all. I don't understand him. He takes the story in a much less clear direction. I understood everything before, but I don't really understand what he represents. I've seen some people say that he is a manifestation of a man who abused Belle when she was young, and I could see that because he is talked about in relation to trauma, specifically generational trauma. I also saw some people say it was related to Egyptian mythology, which is a bit of a theme. Belle wears like an eye of Horus on her wrist. She's partially Egyptian. Seth is like Set, the god of chaos and darkness. Sure, I guess. I don't know. I don't find that a very satisfying explanation. He caused a wedge in Noelle and Belle's relationship by encouraging Belle to harm her mother using ground up rose petals, which her mother is allergic to. I don't understand, though, what Seth is and what the Rouge cult's motivation is for marking their roses early. The vampires say they like souls with trauma, especially generational trauma, so Seth caused that. But they are in California. There's millions of people living there. I'm sure millions of them have generational trauma. I don't understand why you have to like mark these two characters from Montreal. It's weird. I don't know. I can understand Seth a bit as a metaphor for men pitting women against each other using beauty, because he pits Belle against her mom by saying her mom is stealing her beauty and she has to steal it back and blah 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 blah. I suppose I want to think of him literally, and he's just not literal, which frustrates me. Also, I'm really sorry, but the Tom Cruise thing with him was really strange and annoying. I hated it the whole time. I never thought it was like funny or interesting, sorry. I really love Mona Awad's writing style. It feels like my brain is getting a workout, and there's so many layers I'm sure I'm missing. I'm definitely going to keep reading her other books, and I could see myself coming back to Rouge for a reread. I think it's prescient enough that I could probably do a video essay about it. I would recommend if you like her other work, or trippy semi-fairy tale stories about beauty and our relationship to it. I gave Rouge 4 stars. The Plague Stones. Paul and Trisha Feenan can't resist the offer of a free stone cottage and a very, very lucrative job on the board of trustees for Hallwell Village, especially after a traumatic break-in scars their son. However, they do have the responsibility of keeping safe a plague stone in their backyard. These plague stones were boundaries, parts of the city, the town, the village, that plague sufferers could not pass and enter the village. So Hallswell remained safe from the plague while cities around them suffered because they stayed in quarantine. However, there seems to be a force that definitely wants to get past the plague stones. I'll read just about any book about plagues or pandemics. I love them so much. I think it's so interesting. I will say that I think the blurb is a little misleading because the back of the book says that like Trish is the main character. She is not the main character. It's her son, Toby. Trish does like almost nothing. Toby does almost all of the investigating and interacting with the ghost. There's a ghost, by the way, there's a ghost. I don't know why the blurb frames Trish as the main character when she's definitely more of a side or supporting character. It's not a bad thing, it just really threw me off when I was expecting to read from her point of view. The Plague Stones is a pretty classic haunted house story with a twist that it's actually a whole city that's haunted. I really enjoyed the tension and atmosphere that was built, and I found the stones fascinating, though I wish they played a little bit larger of a role in the story. Before rereading the blurb, I didn't really remember why they were there in the first place. I don't remember if they were placed after Hester became a problem as a way to keep her out, or if they had another purpose. It's just they're not really relevant to the story. They each have names, and they seem like they should be more important than they are. I like the characters well enough. Toby is decently smart, and he's a capable protagonist, and he's the same age as the ghost, Hester, so there's like an interesting parallel there. He is also the one that starts to connect with the regular people of the town, who are essentially a separate class from the Board of Trustees. It's good to have him as that connection point. His parents, Trish and Peter, are pretty good characters in their own right. Peter is an electrician with anger issues, but he's very protective of his family, and Trish is a lapsed Catholic who finds her way back to the faith through the paranormal activity around them. They're fine. The trustees are basically non-characters. Joyce, the Reverend, is kind of a character. She's fascinating, and her reasons for being a trustee are very well tied into the story. The only other one with much relevance is Nash, the misogynistic, greedy villain. I wish he had a little bit of a deeper motivation. He's confusing because he seems to truly care about keeping the town safe, but that's so incongruent with the rest of who he is. I'd really love to know why, when he doesn't seem to care much at all for the residents, he cares for the town so much, right? That's strange. The rest of the trustees are basically just there to fill out the roster, and you know, be fodder for some cool killings. The horror aspects are pretty good, though they peak pretty early with an animal death, trigger warning for animal death. I don't know why this seems to be a reoccurring thing for me. The Southern Book Club's Guide for Slaying Vampires did the same. I don't know, maybe it's just that it's not that the horror peaked, but it's more that I just hate when animals are killed. I don't know, I think it was more horrifying than anything else I read in the book. I don't know, if you read it, give me your opinion. It's the fox. If you don't know what I'm talking about the fox. I did feel the tension, especially whenever the stones were threatened. It's good to have this one thing between the order and chaos, because anytime it was threatened, I was like, ah, you know? The only thing I didn't really enjoy about the Plague Stones was the ending. I'm actually gonna verbally say a spoiler warning out loud, because this is a lot of spoilers, okay? So, essentially, Hester is able to break through the Plague Stone's barrier by utilizing the help of a teenager seeking revenge against the trustees because his family were killed because of Nash's poor decisions. Okay, we get about a paragraph each of her killing each of the trustees, except for 2 who were killed off-page. It's really disjointed and uncomfortable, especially because I don't think any of these people did anything wrong. Pretty much the only person who I believe truly deserved their death, Nash, is killed off screen. We don't even get to see him be killed. What the hell? Not that I want to, but it's a horror book, come on. Everyone else seemed afraid of Hester, but mostly kind. Sure, they were skimping on development and endangering the lives of those in the town as a result, but I'm pretty sure the only one who knew about that was Nash, because when Nancy found out that they were building on an archaeological site, she immediately was like all up in arms and angry, you know? It seemed like Nash sent the thug to beat up Toby, the thug who beat up Toby to make them move out of their apartment, to make them move into the house, blah 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 blah. He did that without the knowledge of the others. They literally had nothing to do with Hester, the bad things happening in the town, or anything that would make their deaths feel like anything more than a cheap shock. I'm also just not on Hester's side at all. I don't feel sorry for her or her village. Her village contracts the plague, and they want to go to the bigger city to drink from this like special pond that they have that's supposed to have healing properties and be cared for. But it's the right thing to do to quarantine your city from the plague. It was the Black Death, bro. Yeah, I guess the people of the city could have given them some of the sacred healing water, but genuinely providing them refuge and treatment would have endangered all of the citizens of the city. Additionally, there is no reason that she should haunt the descendants of that city for hundreds of years. She has gotten her revenge. They say that she's gotten through the barrier multiple times over. I don't think she's supposed to be like the bad guy, but I feel like we're supposed to feel a little sympathetic for her, and I don't. I'm sorry, she's wrong. I'm yelling, I need to calm down. Apparently, the village committed the sin of being unneighborly. There's references to like Sodom and Gomorrah and how their sin was being unneighborly and that's why they were destroyed by the Lord. But Hester committed the sin of murdering dozens of people who had nothing to do with that. She is a murdering ghost. Who in their right mind would invite her into their city? Like, that is the solution. The solution is to invite her in to break bread with you and be neighborly. She is a murderous ghost! What the hell? I understand that she's possessed by the spirit of something like older and more evil, but that was like scarcely mentioned. It was mentioned maybe like twice. I think only one time it was mentioned before she became possessed. I also didn't love the insinuation that she essentially started a new outbreak of the Black Plague on the living, but it's like a super Black Plague. Oh my god. It's fine. It just felt a little cheesy. It's like when the villain gives you one last jump scare at the end of a B movie to like imply that there's gonna be a sequel. Come on, come on. I liked the chapters in the past that showed Hester's backstory, and I'm glad that we didn't get them all shoved in. I was happy with how they bounced back and forth, but I would have liked to have seen more of a thematic tie-in for when the chapters switched. It happened seemingly at random, and while it wasn't distracting, I think it could have been a smoother jump. I liked the book overall. I think the Hester thing, it's fine, but I liked the book overall, I promise. I actually really liked it. I would recommend if you like a good ghost story. It had me engaged really well. I felt the pacing never really dipped into boring territory, despite it being a very long book. I gave it 3.75 stars, but we're rounding up, so I gave The Plague Stones 4 stars. Old Soul. This is the last book I read this month. It was also an arc. It was an arc I was so excited for. I saw it and I said, please, please let me get this arc. And I did. Ha 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 ha. So when two grieving strangers meet completely by coincidence in Osaka, Japan, they find that they have a really strange, disturbing connection. Jake, The main character, you could argue, I'll get back to that, his best friend and Mariko's twin brother each died 6,000 miles apart in the same inexplicable circumstances. Like full-on supernatural, that's weird. Both of the victims encountered a really mesmerizing, strange woman in the days before their death, and then she disappeared. Jake finds himself compelled to follow the trail and see where else this woman has left her trail of destruction. It goes back continents and centuries, and many have died in strange, terrifying, but eerily similar ways. At the center of it all is the same woman. Her name changes every time, but her purpose never wavers, and Jake races to discover who or what she is. So like I said, this was an arc. I was extremely excited to receive an advanced copy of this book. The premise sounded so surreal and weird that I could not resist, and in some ways, Old Soul really delivered. I found myself a little disappointed in the final picture, however. Just to get it out of the way, there were a few strange editing choices in this book, but I believe that they're going to be changed or resolved later, as again, this is not the final version of the text. I'm reading it a full 6 months before its release date. There is no punctuation on any of the dialogue, but I think the conversations flowed naturally enough that being confused was pretty rare. It might have been once or twice that I had to stop and reread a small section to see who was talking. There were also moments where the dialogue is formatted like a script. I think this would be interesting if the character telling the story had a relation to the film industry, like with They Thought They Buried Us, but it happens across characters and feels a little unnatural. I'm not marking down the book's score because of any of that, I'm just noting it. The story itself is pretty fascinating. It's less of a full and complete novel, and instead it's an anthology of the path of this very strange woman and the lives of those she's affected through her actions. There are a few characters and anthologies that connect across time and come together for the finale. I thought all of the connections were so interesting and extremely exciting. However, the anthology sections are quite short, so I didn't really build an attachment to any of the characters, and they also became repetitive because the woman operates in a similar way, the same ritual with each victim. So, like I said, our quote-unquote main character is Jake, and although we learn a little about him and his path through his memories of the friend who became victim to this woman, he's ultimately unimportant in the end. He's not even present for the climax. I feel like there is an interesting theme to be seen with each of the stories. In one, it's about like a father's overprotective love for his daughter. In another, it's about love with the right person in the wrong time. There's something about the novel that makes me want to like it more than I do. The most fascinating story, I think, is that of the woman, the villain, and the sculptor. I think there's a theme between them that's so compelling. And they each hold juxtaposed positions. The woman is willing to do whatever it takes to stay alive, to experience every part of life no matter who gets in her way. But the sculptor is willing to give up a huge part of her life, her dreams, for a different life. It's genuinely interesting. I kind of liked the woman as a character more than any of the others. She is the main character, I think. And the lore of the monster that builds up around her is also really good. I actually wish we learned more about that. The victims seem to be tormented by something invisible and supernatural, and when they die, it's discovered that all of their organs have been reversed, like they've been flipped. And that's not a big spoiler. I think you find that out in like chapter 1, maybe chapter 2. It's so intriguing. We're introduced to the woman as she's literally falling apart, rotting from the inside from all sorts of diseases and bacteria, and the descriptions of her falling apart are really visceral and vibrant. I obviously loved them. She's guiding a 17-year-old girl to a location waiting for Venus to rise to perform a ritual. It's a really great hook, and I really wanted to know more. The pace at which the story delivers information is really good as well. I think the ending is going to be something I'll be thinking about for a long while. The epilogue is extremely poetic and epic in the Grecian sense of the word, but the final chapters were so tense. It left me feeling really like melancholic, a little defeated, but in a way I think it was the perfect ending for the themes presented. It's a good book, and I keep wavering between giving it 3 or 4 stars. I've changed my mind 100 times, and I'll probably change it 100 more. I think if there were maybe 1 or 2 stories cut, and the rest were expanded upon, it would make for a fuller, more cohesive narrative. I would recommend this book if you like surrealist horror, almost like cosmic horror, and if you like a little ambiguity and unique locations, this book is definitely for you. I gave Old Soul 3.5 stars. And now, hopping back into the rest of this video with my collage, stats page, etc.
Okay, so I finished up this page off screen. I think it's so cute. Honestly, this is one of my favorite reading trackers that I've done. I love the bees. I think they're so cute. Decorated excellently. So I'm actually really happy with this. So now that we've done all of the reviews in the reading tracker, I'm gonna do the collage before I do the stats page, just because I always worry that I'm gonna accidentally use too many of my supplies while decorating and not have any left for the collage page. So here's my slightly aesthetic photo of peaches. It's cute, yeah? So we're gonna start there. I tend to decorate my collages pretty similar, just because I think they're cute the way that they are, you know? Ooh, I didn't need to do that. It's okay, it'll get covered up. I almost wish I had printed more of the like warmer toned paper, because this one's quite cool toned, and in comparison to the rest of the stuff that I have, I don't know, it's reading as like green, which is not bad considering the amount of green in the image and stuff. I do have more of these big beautiful stickers of peaches. I think the issue with them is that they're like semi-transparent. I have a feeling I just didn't prep enough materials for this one, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna use practically all of the like peach stickers, so I don't really need to prep that much material. And while it's true that I am using practically all of the peach stickers, I don't have a lot of like background materials. I basically just have the two peach pattern things. It looks like something, but is that something good? That's the eternal question. Not bad. I kind of want to add more flowers, like right there. I want to add a bee stamp. I think I have to do it in red because I don't think it'll appear in the black. Hopefully it doesn't ruin everything. No, he's cute. I mean, I feel like this looks pretty good. It is kind of a chaotic one, I will say. Okay, I think that's the collage completed. It feels like a bit of a chaotic, messy one, but not necessarily in a bad way. Let's see, let's look at it compared to last month's. This is last month's. This is this month's. Very chaotic. I like it. Last thing for the month of June is our stats page. Now the stats page is gonna look a little bit different from months previous, because usually I read an odd number of books and the stats pages is stats on the front and back of one page. However, first of all, this month I read 8 books instead of an odd number, and so obviously my pages look a little bit different, but also the next couple pages, the next few pages are going to be my mid-year reading wrap-up pages. And again, these pages always look kind of weird because they're scrap pages. I can feel my glue thing running out of glue. I genuinely just need it to last a little bit longer. Should we make a guess of what the average length is going to be this month? I'm going to guess it's going to be 384 pages. That is my guess. We'll find out if I'm right. That looks nice, right? It's still got that peachy vibe. Right. There. Here at After Plague, we use every last scrap. Every single piece. So that's books red, and this one is pages red. I apparently read 3,000. Ooh, whoops. It's got too much. It's too much. 3,001 pages exactly. 375. I was surprisingly close with my guess of 384 pages. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself. So for our second stats page, we do best and worst of the month, star rating, and then we do a little notes section down at the bottom here. I think those are lined up. They look lined up. What do you think? Are they lined up? I think so. But I'm like out of decoration. Let's see, all I've got is some more peaches, some flowers. That's kind of it. I got half a pie. I really want to use this half a pie, but I don't think I can. Put it right there. And then of course we have to add a bee. Bam. Oh, where did it go? There it is. Maybe I can use this over here. Have a little color. Oh. Let me put my half a pie here. Yes! Yes, I can! A use for my half a pie. I think that that looks great. Now we're gonna go through the front of the book and do all our front of book stuff, starting with book battle. Oh my gosh, this is getting so thick. Anyway, the best book I read in the month of June was Rouge by Mona Awad. I'm very excited to pick my favorites in my mid-year reading wrap-up and fill in the next stage of the book battle. Actually, I get to fill it all the way up until the semifinals, I guess that is. So that's really exciting. Some good choices here, I think. I'm pretty sure I know which ones I'm going to have move on to the next round. So I'm excited about that. Tune in next time to see. A to Z challenge. I definitely do have some in the A to Z challenge. I guess let's start with A. Because Mona Awad is an A, obviously. And that also hits in our R category for titles. The Golden Couple, no. That's Hendrix, no. They Thought They Buried Us does go for titles, doesn't it? So that gets that one, but it does not get me an author credit. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Oddly enough, Paris is my mark for both P's. Because BA Paris was my author credit. We're getting a lot of wins this month, actually. The Second Life of Mirielle West, no. And I actually already have Amanda Skeenan-Dorr as author. Arsenic Eater's Wife is a no. Tanya Mitchell is no. I already got Rouge and Rouge. The Plague Stones, I've already tagged for that. Aggie Blum Thompson, yep. Oh, The Only One Left, yep. And Susan Barker, yep. So that's all I've got for A to Z challenges. I need to add heart stickers to a few of these. I don't know if I have any left. Okay, I found my heart stickers. For A, why not? Bam, right there. Who else got filled? R did. I have another blue heart. Oh, and P got filled as well. Yellow, why not? I think that's everybody that's filled. I think we might be halfway there on how many are filled. 10, not quite halfway. I've got to get my XYZs, my UVs, my Q. Obviously those are gonna be harder than other letters, so I'm not surprised that those are kind of the ones I'm left with last. Yeah, I'm probably going to start trying to intentionally integrate these ones because we are halfway into the year and not halfway done with the letters. So I might try and integrate at least one of these a month. Ooh, yes, Medical Examiner's Challenge. We had a lot of deaths in one of the books. Frankly, an insane amount of deaths. I don't know. I don't know. It was just insane. Now, I'm actually gonna have to pop up here. So if I get some with short titles, I can put them down here, but these are long. Rouge is difficult.
Rouge is extremely difficult. On my list, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 names, but I'm not confident about 4 of them. I'll put 9, but I think it's a little ambiguous about whether 4 of them actually died. Then we have a heavy hitter. Oddly enough, a hugely heavy hitter. The Plague Stones. A truly baffling amount of deaths. 41. And it has to be named deaths. This is the most I've gotten by a hefty margin. The only thing coming close is the House of Night series, and that was a series of books. Oh my gosh. Oh, you know what? Old Soul actually also packs a huge wallop in terms of deaths. I don't think it's that much, but it is a lot. Let's see. 29. Yeah, a large amount, but still nowhere close. That is all I've got for Medical Examiner's Challenge. Big death tolls. I think that was maybe, was that 100 deaths this month? 98, 101 deaths this month. That's so exciting. That's a good number, 101. Wow. I'm gonna crush this challenge. And of course, I did read The Second Life of Mirielle West, which takes place in the 1920s. I did also read another historical fiction book this month, that being The Arsenic Eater's Wife, but I think it took place in the 1800s, so there's no reason for me to put it on my chart here. Plague Stones also took place in an older century. It took place partially in the 13th century, but obviously that is nowhere near my chart. For my Dark Academia challenge, I am going to put They Thought They Buried Us in, flip it around for you. They Thought They Buried Us in the decolonial takes category. It was extremely decolonial, incredibly unsubtly. Just because I don't think it's good doesn't mean it doesn't belong there. It does. I mean, it's just, I don't think it was very good. I don't have anything new for you horror-wise. I did read some horror books, but they were mostly paranormal horror books. So the difference between paranormal and supernatural is for creatures, right? It's for vampires, werewolves, witches, that kind of thing. Paranormal is for ghosts, hauntings, that kind of thing. So even though I read, let's see, which horror books did I read this month? I read Rouge, but that one, it's maybe psychological, it's maybe Lovecraftian, it's hard to categorize. It's more of a literary story. So is Old Soul. I think Old Soul is mostly Lovecraftian, but I still don't think it counts quite. So the only one I've really read this month was The Plague Stones, and that was paranormal. It's just, they're hard to quantify, they're hard to categorize. Book bingo! I definitely have some slots to fill in here. Single word title, Rouge definitely takes that for sure. I guess that's all that counts right now? I don't know. Let's see. Amateur Sleuth is definitely The Paris Apartment. Can't get more amateur than that. And spoilers, quick spoilers, very quick spoilers. Spouse is the villain, the golden couple, 100%. I won't say which spouse, but definitely a spouse is the villain. Let's see. I didn't know this, I could have put Bright Young Women under Inspired by True Events. Apparently it's inspired by the Bundy murders. I didn't know that. I had no idea. Yeah, that seems about right. I'm close to another bingo here, that's nice. Books read, nice and easy. So let's do a quick flip through of everything we have accomplished today. Thank you everyone so much for watching. If you liked this video, please leave a like. If you want to see more from me, subscribe. I try to upload videos every single week. Often I'm not good at that, but I'm trying. Follow me on all my other social media to see what I'm working on next. I am After Plague pretty much everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, Goodreads, Storygraph. Yeah, those are probably important to mention for this video. And I am After_Plague on Twitter. I have a book out on my shop. It's a collection of horror short stories. afterplagueart.myshopify.com. Let me know if you like it, if you pick it up. Thank you again so much for watching. I will see you next time, hopefully. And I hope you are reading some excellent books. Bye!